Well, thank you for joining our webinar, Preparing for Your Business for Government Contracting. This is the first in a series of what we call Government Contracting 101, in efforts to educate government contractors on how to successfully do business as a government contractor. We will be covering several key topics today, from how to register to do business with the government, to doing things to consider when you're actually attempting to bid on and win contracts. My name is Archie, and I will be serving as a moderator for today's webinar. Our guest speaker for today is Gregory James, and he is the director of the Cross Timbers Apex Accelerator at University of Texas at Austin. Gregory has several decades of experience in this industry and serves as an advisor to senior government officials as it pertains to government contracting. Now, I could go on and on talking about Gregory, but I could never really do him enough justice as he could do himself. And with that, I'll pass it on to Gregory so he can tell you a little bit more about himself.
Very good. Hey, thank you, Archie, and thank you, James, for the opportunity to talk to you about preparing for government contracting. If you guys can just hang on just 1 minute, I'm wanting to share my screen. We'll go here. And okay, very good. Let's see, is it do? Okay, there you go, right over here. Come on up. Very good. So once again, I'd like to thank everyone for attending. We're going to talk a lot about a lot of different things, so it's going to go relatively fast and hopefully within the 60 minutes. And oh, by the way, if you have any questions, you could submit them through the question and the Q&A or the chat box. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today are the registration process. You know, how do you register to do business with government, especially the federal government? And of course, we want to include state and local governments. The second thing we're going to talk about is socio-economic certifications. You know, the women-owned companies, service disabled, veteran, small disadvantaged business, hub zone, and the different classifications that are out there. Then we'll talk about marketing. That's one of my dear subjects, marketing. And then we'll talk a little bit about solicitation, business bidding, and business development. And then, of course, cybersecurity compliance. Okay. Next slide is kind of talks about who we are. The Apex, the Cross Timbers Apex Accelerator is funded by the Department of Defense, Office of Small Business Programs, the University of Texas at Arlington, there you go, an Office of Research, and of course we get contributions from third-party contributors. Our mission is to provide technical assistance to companies that want to do business with government, and we cover all the different levels of government, and this webinar today will be a little bit more directed to the federal side. The technical assistance includes one-on-one counseling, identifying solicitations, proposal review, market research, training workshops, cybersecurity compliance, and other activities as needed. We currently have about 1,800 clients in our CRM, in our database right now. And I've got 5 counselors, and we do have a process. And if you want to do business with us, then you go right to our if you need our assistance, you go right to our website, which is listed down at the bottom of each page, and fill out a request for assistance. Okay, so now let's talk about the first one, is registration process. The System for Award Management, SAM.gov. That's the registration site to register your company to do business with the federal government. I'm not going to say that registration process is easy, but it is logical in how it progresses in terms of the information that it wants from you. One of the things that you'll have to do when you do register in sam.gov is have a NAICS code and a product service code. So the presentation, which I think will be available to you after the meeting, these are hopefully live links, and then all you have to do is click on it. Then the other registration process is the dynamic small business search. That's the database. Once you complete the registration in SAM, then SBA will go to that database and pull out small businesses and put them over in their database, the dynamic small business search. And that's an important database because that's where contracting officers, program managers, even prime contractors will go to find your capabilities, to find your company. So it's a real important one, and we stress to our clients that you keep it updated and with new and fresh information. Now, at the state of Texas level, it's the comptroller's office, and that the link is there. If you want to register to do business with the state, then you need to be part of the CMBL, which is a contractor master bidders list. And then, of course, if you want to deal with the local government, and by the way, for some of you that are outside of the state of Texas, each state has a similar process, a similar website that you would go to. And then, of course, with local governments, you have to go to each entity. And sometimes that can be cumbersome. But as we'll talk about in marketing, it's important to establish where you want to do business. And then that would dictate what registrations you need to go through and so on. Let me quickly go back up to NAICS codes and product service codes. Now, NAICS codes are a 6-digit code that represents the industry that you're in. Like if you're in IT or if you're in construction, and there are various subgroupings. It's a 6-digit code, and the first 2 is a summary, and then the last 4 are unique to that particular summary code. And then, of course, with federal PSCs and FSCs, these are what happens. The federal government especially will classify what they purchase. Okay, so you have the NAICS code, which says what industry you're in, and then you have the product service code that the federal government has classified all of their purchases in. So you want to have both of those listed in your SAM registration. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right, so Socio-Economic Certifications. Now, a lot of people think that if they get these certifications that they'll automatically start getting contracts. No, that's not the case. And so these different types of certifications, to me, they just open the door up a little bit for you, especially if you're just getting into the industry or you're a startup. You know, these certifications can have some relevancy to your opportunity, especially when it comes to bidding on solicitations. So the first one is DBE, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. Now that certification is sponsored by the U.S. Transportation Department. And what happens there is that when, let's say DOT, Department of Transportation, they flow funds down in different, to different entities that are involved in transportation. So like DART, will request that DBE, DFW Airport, any of those areas that have transportation in it, the DBE certification is a good one to have. And I would say that Texas especially, and I think all states, will be getting a pretty good chunk of infrastructure dollars. So if you're in construction or highway or in that field, it's going to be tremendous opportunities. There's going to be a lot of money flowing, but the DBE certification is important to have. The next one is women-owned small businesses. By the way, with all these certifications, 51% or more of the company has to be controlled by the particular group, women-owned, small disadvantaged, DBE, the whole like. So, but if you click on these links, that'll give you much more detailed information about the requirements. So you have women-owned small business, then you have small disadvantaged business /8A certified. Now, what this certification is sponsored by the SBA. And by the way, the women-owned small business certification is an SBA certification. And what I mean by that, you submit all your documents to SBA, and then they determine, whether you're a woman-owned, or they determine the level of certification that you're qualified for. One of the good things about the 8A program, it's been around a very long time. There's lots of contracting people at the federal level are very familiar with that certification. So if you can qualify for it, I think it's a good deal to go, because what that does is say you can negotiate contract awards under the 8A program. Now, at some point, you can also negotiate contract awards with all of the federal certifications that we're talking about. But the 8A program is very unique. Now, tied to the 8A program is small disadvantaged business, which we'll cover down at 2.5. The next one down is his hub zone. Now, what's good about the hub zone certification is that your company is geographically located in a census tract that SBA has deemed a hub zone. So and also 35% of your employees have to live in a hub zone. So if you have a NAICS code that is, say, construction, or where you got a lot of laborers, that works pretty well. If you're in an IT company or a engineering company, you tend not to have those employees tend to not live in hub zone areas or hub zone census tracts. So it's historically underutilized business zones. So, but there is a map that you can go to on SBA under hub zone, and you can put in your company address and just see where you fall in line under that. Number 5 deals with small disadvantaged business, SDB. Now, at this very moment, SDB is a self-certifying certification. In other words, when you fill out your SAM registration, and if you feel like you meet the qualifications, then you would click the box and say, yes, I am a small disadvantaged business. Now, what the current administration has done, each of these categories have goal numbers that each agency is supposed to meet. The small disadvantaged business goal will be 15%, which is the highest percentage goal than any of these other categories. Usually the women-owned, the 8A, they're in the the 3 to 4% goal status for an agency. So the small disadvantaged business certification will be 15%, which is pretty high. The only problem I have with that, it is self-attestment. There is no formal, let's review your records, let's look at your tax returns, let's look at your financial statements. Let's just see if your documents support what you're asking. So I think we're going to probably see it's going to be ripe for fraud and abuse, but That's the way the federal government has it laid out at this very moment. The next one down is service disabled veteran-owned small businesses. And of course, these are companies that the veteran owns 51% of it or more. The bylaws that you have, that you set up with the state, your corporate bylaws have to indicate that you are in control of the business. You may have non-veteran partners, and like in the state of Texas, if you are a minority owner, you have rights, and so, but with this program, with the federal government, those rights are not there. So your bylaws, everything has to basically point to the concept that the service disabled veteran is in full control of the company, and any decisions that he or she makes are not challengeable. Now, this rule, I don't know how it would work in the court systems in the state of Texas, but so far there doesn't appear to be a conflict. Okay. By the way, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in chat or in the Q&A box. Now let's talk about there's some more. Let me make sure. Yeah. So the rest, these are other certifications that you can get. The state of Texas has a historically underutilized business certification, and they're veterans, service disabled, women, minorities. They tend, that they can qualify for this certification. Now, one of the things that you'll notice at the federal level, they can set aside contracts. They can negotiate directly for whatever category that they put the solicitation out on the street. So if they think there's enough women-owned small businesses to get a reasonable offer back, then they'll set it aside under the WSB category. At the state level, at the local government levels, there are no set-asides. So kind of keep that in mind, at least here in the state of Texas. These goals are more what I call subcontracting goals. In other words, if a prime contractor wins the award, then the prime contractor has to comply with, they have to have X amount of hub companies as subcontractors on their job when they're working. The North Central Texas Regional Certification Agency, NCTRCA, certifies small businesses for local governments. So the city of Dallas, the counties, the cities, the DARTs, all those guys at the local level rely on the certification from here. And then we have two what I call private sector certifications. You have the Women's Business Council Southwest, which basically will certify women-owned companies for corporations. They're supported by the private sector. So the IBMs, the JCPenney's, and the large companies, when they want, they want to say, okay, we're committed to X percent of work going to women-owned companies or minority-owned companies. These two certifications work very well. And then, of course, number 10 is the Dallas-Fort Worth Minority Supplier Development Council, and they certify MWBEs, Minority Women Business Enterprises. Okay, now, it gets confusing with certifications. It really does. I mean, I have clients that if they meet any of these 10 categories, they will get it just to have it in their toolbox. Excuse me. So what you have to decide, and we'll talk a little bit more about when we get to marketing, where do you want to do business? And if you say, well, I think I just want to do local government business, then you pick the certification that local governments accept. Some will say, no, I want to do business with the state, or I want to do business with the federal government. Then, you have to, you have to utilize these certifications in each one of those categories. So economic certifications can be confusing upfront, but if you say, where do you see the business for your company coming from within government, then it becomes a little bit clearer, at least what the first step you should do. Now, if City of Houston, the City of San Antonio, they all have similar NCTRCA certifications. So that's, if you want to do business in the City of Houston and you meet certain qualifications, you'll want to register your company with them. Okay, now business operations. Okay, this is another key category in preparing your company to do business with government, and especially with the federal government. So the first thing is quality certifications. If you'll notice, BidExecs has an ISO certification, and that certification basically means that they have quality standards in the way business is done in their company. And I recommend it for all companies, even if you only have 4 or 5 employees, because once again, depending on where you want to do business, like the federal government says they can't define what type of quality certifications that you have, but they'll say you need to have a quality program in your business operations. And this is really true for manufacturers. If you manufacture something, the government, the federal government, wants to make sure that when that product hits their designated dock, it meets the quality standards that they've set up. Now, what we're also seeing now, if say you want to be a subcontractor to the aerospace industry, the Lockheed Martins, the Bells, the L3s, the Boeings, all of them, they're going to require a certain kind of quality certification that is specific to their industry. So you want to have it. You want to have it. It's a competitive edge, okay? Because your competitors might not have the ISO, like I said, BidExecs has. So that sets you apart from your competition, and it makes it more likely that that an opportunity will come your way. The other thing that we look at in business operations is that you have 2 or more years of contracting experience. So at the federal level, it's hard for contracting officers to award contracts to startup companies that have no experience. In fact, they won't. But let's say that you are a startup and you're in research and development, and you've come up with a great idea and you want to get it funded, blah, 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 then that's okay. That experience level kind of takes, and that's a big push, research and development. But just normal activity, like construction or IT or janitorial, any services you want to provide at the federal level, they're going to want you to have at least 2 years of contracting experience. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into marketing and we talk about capability statements. So now at the state and local governments, I've not seen any hard, fast rule that says, they want that 2 years, but it's logical to think that you've got to have some past performance. I mean, people, contracting people, even in the city of Dallas, they don't want to award you a contract if you don't have the experience in that contract. So, get out there and get some experience, especially if you're just getting started. You can, we tell our clients a lot, gain experience in the private sector. Okay. And then once you've got some jobs under your belt, you've got some references, then you can go into the federal levels. CPA, familiar with government contracting. This is really important. Now, we put on webinars to kind of cover these items. And if you go to our website, you'll see the list of these items, but and we've got one that we'll do on government accounting standards. Now, why this is important at the federal level, because there are certain guidelines that a contracting officer will require your accounting process. And so you want to make sure that, one, you know what the overall requirements are, and then in particularly, you know, how they affect your situation. You know, if a contracting officer wants to see a financial statement so you can prove to them that you have the finances to perform on a contract, they'd much rather believe a CPA stamped review or quarterly or audited statements as opposed to QuickBooks. Now, there's nothing wrong with QuickBooks because the major standard is that it's general ledger control. So you have debits, you have credits, you have account numbers, and so on. And why this is important is that if you, as you move up the food chain in government contracting, especially federal, they may require that they come in and audit your books, especially if it's a good size contract. They have the ability to come in and look at your accounting, how you accounted for the invoice that you're sending us. So, you know, you want to make sure that you meet those standards up front, and there's no questions about the validity of your financial statements, because you've got a CPA that has put his stamp of approval or her stamp of approval on it, and they'll believe it. The next one down is adequate management policies, a policy manual. So, you know, you should have a personnel manual, you should have a purchasing manual, you know, you should have documents in your company that are procedures that you won't follow. And now, you know, if you're a small company and you're 1 to 5 people, you know, usually, you know, you don't have to be formal in the process, but it's a good idea to have it written down in some sort of policy manual. And so that if there is a situation that does come up with one of those 5 employees, then you've got, they know when they're hired, you know, what the policy says. And then if they violate that policy, then you've got good grounds for termination or whatever it is. So policy manual, I think, is very important. And that plays into quality certifications, because they're, you know, it kind of goes hand in hand within the company. The next one down is lawyer familiar with government contracting. Okay, so, you know, we have a couple of lawyers that we recommend our clients to, especially if it's dealing with protest or claims, or, you know, you've been wronged by your contracting officer and they're holding up your final payment. You need a lawyer that understands the intricacies of government contracting or requirements in government contracts. You need a lawyer, period. But if you can get, you know, one that kind of specializes or knows what the requirements are, at least at the federal level, then you know, you're just that much ahead of the game in terms of their ability to get you through the legal process. At the state and local government levels, I don't, you know, it's not as succinct or as it is at the federal level, but you should have a lawyer anyway, especially when it comes to documents and you know, solicitations. Hey, can you read this and tell me what this means? So on and so on. The next one down is accept credit cards. So your business needs to be able to process credit card transactions. The federal government spends billions of dollars every year, you know, on credit cards. And it's usually a 4-digit type of transaction. So most federal employees that have the card will, they have a max limit of say $9,999 that they can pay with their credit card. And there are other people as you get higher up within the federal government, they may have a 6-digit authority, so they could use their credit cards to pay $500,000. Having said all that, if you don't have credit card processing now, talk to your bank and make sure that the bank will grow as you grow. In other words, they'll say, okay, we'll now process 6-digit credit card transactions. That doesn't happen overnight because they have to feel like you do well on the 10-digit credit card transactions. But you want to make sure that processor, that bank will grow with you as you grow in terms of credit card transactions. The next one down, the last one, is wide area workflow. Now, this is a VPN, virtual private network, that a federal agency will use to communicate directly with you, the vendor. And the purchase orders go through there, payments, all sorts of things. So wide area workflow, you'll see that requirement when you start to get larger awards. And I'm not sure exactly what the number is, but I know, like here with my program, we're about $800,000. So our Granite County people have to submit invoices through wide area workflow. Okay. Business operations, really key and important. Okay. Now, the next one is of course, here's the accounting system stuff, accumulated cost under general ledger control. A lot of contracts you may get at the federal level or even at the state may be time and material type contracts. So you need to be able to document the hours spent on this project versus that project. And you want to have a good timekeeping system that you can delineate between time spent on a commercial project, if that's the case. And most projects, most awards are going to be, fixed price. But once again, once you move up the food chain, you may get time and material contract, which is not bad because it's kind of open-ended, so to speak. But you want to make sure that your timekeeping system is good and verifiable. Once again, financial statements prepared by CPA, proper segregation of direct costs from indirect, and identification and accumulation of direct cost by contract. So the accounting system gets to be very important. Okay, now let's talk about marketing. Fun subject. So to me, when we talk about marketing, or I'm talking to a client that wants to do business, say, with the federal government, there's some questions that need to be answered. One, does the federal government buy my company's goods and services? And we try and help our clients understand, yes, they are, or maybe they aren't. And here are the numbers, the quantities, financially, this is what's there, and they do buy it. The other question is that who makes the buy decision? Okay, who's the one in that agency makes the decision to buy your goods or services? And then the last question deals with what methods are used to buy goods and services. So if we can help you understand, yes, the government buys what you sell. Here are the agencies that buy this product. We usually do it by a NAICS code, NAICS code. And we help you understand how much was spent and how much did the individual agencies spend, on that NAICS code. And what that does is give you a feel for how much resources, how much time, how much effort, you're going to need to put in order to be successful. Who makes the buy decision? Well, I believe in target marketing. Okay. The government, the Fed, is so big that if you go into it thinking, well, I'm in the IT business, I can sell everything I do to every company I know of. Well, that could be very frustrating at the beginning stages of your activity. You want to be able to target an agency. You want to be able to identify who in that agency makes the decision to buy. You want to kind of know what methods do they use. Do they use credit cards or purchase orders or any of that kind of stuff? You want to know that. And then if you target a particular agency, a particular sub-agency, then I think you don't get quite as frustrated at the initial stages. I mean, once you get in the game and you're doing well and you're bidding on contracts, then it becomes wide open for you. But at the early stages, I don't want you to get depressed or confused. So it's easier to target. It's easier to say, okay, I want to do business with DoD and the Army, and I want to do with the Army Corps of Engineers, and I want to do it out of the Dallas-Fort Worth Army Corps District Office. So that district office is where now you start to develop relationships. So we got to bring it down to a micro level so that you can be more, your resources can be best utilized. All right, company website, you got to have one. So hopefully you do. And you can kind of get into, I've got one client that has started, she's an 8A, and she has a website, a general business website. And so, or a website that talks about their business in general. They have about 4 different revenue streams or 4 different NAICS codes that they sell under. So what they decided to do is add web pages to their website that specifically targets a customer that they want to do business with. So, and we're I'm eager to see how they do it and how it looks. The next thing is signature block on emails. Man, that I get more frustrated when I get emails from people. I don't, and you look at their name, that's it. They don't give you their name of the company, the phone numbers, the website. You got to have a signature block on all of your emails. And so, I mean, somebody will send me an email and say, hey, I need help with this. And I'll send an email back to them. Well, what is your phone number? Because I like to talk to people. I'm okay with email and all the electronic stuff, but I like to talk to people. I like to see their eyes. I'm an old salesman, as they say. So signature blocks are important. Email with your website domain name. Boy, that's important. If you have if you have a website and you got a domain name for that website, but your email is .gov, it's a AT&T or all the other free spots where you can go to get an email address, that's immediately a red flag to the contracting people. So if your email, so-and-so and so-and-so at gmail.com, don't do it, because that'll immediately say there's something wrong here. And your competition is doing it. So that's their standard that they're going to use to judge whether or not they'll even consider you, for a solicitation. Business cards, we want them to be card stock so you can write on. A lot of people like fancy wax, wax oriented or coded business cards, but you can't write on. So we recommend that you have a card stock. You put, on one page, you put everything, all your contact information, and the back page is blank. So if you're at a trade show, let's say, and you're trying to network with a bunch of prospective buyers, they're going to need to have something on the back of that card that reminds them that, oh yeah, I remember talking to you. Or you'll need something on a card that reminds you of what this particular person you met at a trade show is looking for. So always keep card stock, always keep it where people can write on them. Solicitation notifications, marketing. So you can sign up with SAM, and you can set profiles, and you would get solicitations every morning that that match the profile. We also have a bid match service that we can build a profile for you, and then you'll get solicitations from federal, state, and local governments nationwide. So this is what I call solicitation notifications. And what's unique about this is, let's say you're in the process of developing a lead list, right? Does the government, who makes the buy decision? So you say, oh, I need a lead list. So if you go to a solicitation, either on SAM or through bid match, at the bottom of each one is a contact person. So I would cut and paste that name and the phone number and the email over into an Excel file and start to develop a lead list. And the best thing, and the good thing about this, these are people that are looking for the products that you sell, because that's what their solicitation has at the bottom. So they're going to be a lot more familiar with what you're trying to sell them than if you just buy a list of email addresses, which I don't recommend you do, and to just do spam, to send stuff out. Well, that's a no-no too. Federal market research. So these three databases are good places to go to find contract history. Part of this thing, does the federal government buy my goods and services? Well, you need the fpds.gov is a great site to go to search for contracts that have been awarded. Now, this particular site has contracts almost up to 30 years in the database. So we've designed some algorithms or search strings that can limit that data, and you just put it in the easy search box, and then only say I only want to see contracts under this NAICS code for the last 3 years. I don't want to know what happened 20 years ago. So we've got search strings you can use that'll limit the data that comes back to you. USA Spending is another good site to go. They use FPDS as their base source. It's a little more user-friendly. So, that's one. And then, of course, the last one is for GSA.gov. And there you can see what kind of contracts were awarded under schedule, GSA contract vehicles / schedules. Okay, so the SBA subcontracting directory, this directory is good to go and search periodically, because primes will put, hey, I'm looking for a subcontractor to do this. And it's a direct request or need. So you want to search that database frequently and or occasionally, just to see if there's somebody out there looking for what you're selling. The last thing in marketing are capability statements. Now, capability statements, the ones that we use, the ones that we recommend, they're called door openers. It's a 30-second read. It's one page. It's bullet points. It's an easy read. I can read your capability statement and I can determine what your company does, your references, and the like. But it's a 30-second read. If it takes longer than 30 seconds, then you're wasting their time. So it's a door opener. So we have a template, and we use, first of all, the format here to our clients to show, on as far as a format and what should be used. The really good thing is keeping the file size under 1 megabyte. Sometimes we'll see capability statement with photographs on it and paragraphs instead of bullet points. And so it starts to eat up the bandwidth. And you want to keep it under 1 megabyte so that you can flow through the spam folders. Okay. And, you should only send a capability statement to somebody on your lead list that you had some sort of verbal conversation with them. So, never in favor of spamming. That gives you a bad reputation in this space. The other thing is tailor to specific agency, prime, and opportunity. So I have clients that have 4 different NAICS codes. And these NAICS codes represent 4 different revenue streams, 4 different customers, 4 different things. So I recommend to them, come up with a capability statement for each revenue stream, break it down, and then you send that capability statement to a person you've identified, on your leads list. And it's more targeted, it's more directed. And believe me, you spend this time up front, the results you get will be a lot more efficient, less money, and so on. Readers will visit your website to get more detailed information. And we want to use short sentences, keywords, and try and take up the whole page. So that's the format. The next guide that we like to have our clients understand is that there is a difference between past performance versus experience, okay? So there's an important distinction: contractors' experience and its past performance. Experience reflects whether contractors have performed similar work before. Past performance, on the other hand, describes how well the contractor performed the job. So that's important. If you want to bid on a job and you send your capability statement and you have no experience in that capability on your capability statement, then you're kind of wasted your time. So you want to be able to distinctly understand the difference between experience / past performance. Okay, now let's look at the capability statement in terms of how it would look. Now I'll take an 8.5 by 11. I'll divide the 8.5 by 11 into 2 sections, okay? One on the right side and one on the left side. Now you don't have to do this. That's just the way, from a template point of view, helps us get our point across. So on the right-hand side is what I call company demographics, okay? These are things that don't change normally, okay? So your cage code, your website, your LinkedIn address, a YouTube video would be great. If you make something, then take a video of it, post it on YouTube, and then put the link on your capability statement. So then somebody looking at it can click on it and see how you do your business. It's just another way for them to develop interest in what you've got. And LinkedIn, by the way, is a super marketing database, because you could go, as you're building your lead list from solicitations, you can go into LinkedIn and say, okay, I only want to see these types of people. And then you'll get, of course it costs money, but you'll start to get lists of these people and that are in your category or that meet your target criteria. And then, that's where you start developing relationships. We have a very good client, graduated out of the 8A program. He was a distributor, or is a distributor, for Motorola radios. Now, Motorola says, we're only going to let you sell X number of radios to the DoD. So His daughter used LinkedIn to identify Pentagon buyers in the Pentagon, big, people that are program managers, people that make decisions, and they were able then to expand their business tremendously because of because of the relationships that were developed through LinkedIn. So it's a very important site. You want your company to have one. You kind of want your employees to have one, so they kind of link up to the company LinkedIn page, and then you want to use it as a marketing tool. Well, you'll want to use your primary NAICS, product service codes, business year business started, socio-economic certifications, bonding, insurance, business certifications, except credit cards, and of course, contact information. So these are what I call demographics. They stay pretty much the same. And so that would be on, say on the right-hand side of your capability. Then on the other side is what we call target content. Okay, 8.5 by 11. One side's got your company demographics. The other side has content that is related to the target agency or target company or buyer that you're trying to go after. So you want to say, these are my core competencies. This is my niche in the market. And you also want to talk about your capacity. And in our template, we have a number of questions related to capacity, just to give you some thoughts, some ways to think about, okay, how do I, do I have a teaming partner? That helps with your capacity. So there's you want to state that. And then of course you want to have your past performance, past experience, and then of course, cyber security policy compliance. So that's the capability statement, okay? So if you're out at a networking event, you got your business card, and then you got your capability statement. If you're doing direct marketing to targeted contracting people or program manager, you call them and you say, hey, I do this, and I want to send you my capability statement, and then you send it to them. It may be voicemail. You may get lucky to hear a live person on the other end, but you're giving them heads up that you're going to send your capability statement to them. It's not spam at that point. And then of course, the cybersecurity policy or compliance, which we'll get a little more deeper into. Okay, any questions or comments, please? I know we've covered a lot of stuff, so I want you to be able to, to have them, posted in chat or Q&A. This next topic talks about solicitation business development. So I have a real simple formula. It is business development activity plus effective proposals equal government contracts. And what I wanted to do, Archie, is have you guys talk a little bit about what you do as it relates to these subjects.
Thanks, Gregory. I'll take it from here, and you're absolutely correct. The formula for success is business development activity as well as effective proposal will help you win government contracts. And the basic formula of success, when you think about it, you got to look at the total government contracting process, and which it requires how you set up your entity correctly, as you already said, Gregory. Make sure that you have a solid and executable business strategy, which not only includes the business development aspect of it, which we call pipeline management, but it also includes the capture strategy for each of the opportunities that you're going to be going after. You need to know things like, do we meet all the requirements? Are there socio-economic set-asides? Is this full and open? Do you have the opportunity to shape the RFQ during the RFI stage? And I'll say that again, do you have the opportunity to shape the RFQ during the RFI stage, which means that you have to look well in advance of an opportunity that's going to be coming down the pipeline. And during the RFI stage, you may have a unique capability. A company may have a unique capability that they may ask a question the government doesn't know that it's out there. And by getting that question asked, they may end up writing the RFP to a capability that you are the only one that has. So that's another key to success. Is this a new effort or is it a recompete? And if it is a recompete, who are the agency's top performers? Who's already been in that space? Who's doing well? Who are the big names that's going to be off in there? So the government, if they see that contract proposal, they may look at that a little bit different. And then how do you partner with them? Is that incumbent strong, right? The person, if it's a recompete, is it a strong incumbent? What do you think that you can do that will be able to unseat them? What advantage do you have over them? Was it previously something that was full and open, and now it's going to be coming down to a small, which brings you off into the opportunity? And then as you think about, you mentioned a little bit earlier about who has experience or past performance. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, and you're starting to get off into that industry. One of the things that you can do is you can either, instead of trying to go after something as a prime, you go after the sub and you partner with somebody who has past performance until you're able to get your own past performance. If you're going to do that, is a right team in place. What do you have to offer a potential partner? They may be strong in a couple of the tasks, and you may be strong in the other task, and together you make a complete package. And if you do get the contract, can you execute it if award, and et cetera, and et cetera. And it goes on, and we're really talking about the business development strategy and how you do it, as we call pipeline management, and set yourself up for success. The other portion of that is it requires you to write an effective proposal, which not only includes the correctness of the proposal, which is all the minutia like, the formatting and the completeness, but did you set up your outline correctly to address all of the questions and the requirements that are going to be coming out in the proposal? Did you answer the questions correctly? Did you effectively lay out what your capabilities are in a manner that looks attractive to the contracting officer, et cetera, and et cetera? I know this may seem like it's complicated, but what I do recommend is that you get with somebody like yourself, Greg, the local Apex accelerator, or you get a company with mine at minimum for a consultation. These are some, not all of the keys to success in government contracting. And with that, Gregory, I'll pass it back over to you.
Good. Thank you very much. I tell you, you got to bid. Okay, you have to bid on contracts while you're doing business development. And what that says to the contracting people, you say you bid on something and you don't get it, you can always ask for a debrief. You can always ask questions related to, okay, why wasn't I chosen, blah, blah, blah. But that builds credibility with the contracting people, okay? So you have to have skin in the game. So by bidding on contracts, on solicitations, that shows your willingness, your eagerness to do work for them. So that complements your business development activity. All right, very good, Archie. Thank you. So the last subject I want to talk about deals with cybersecurity, national security. So I know you guys know that from a geopolitical situation that we have enemies, and we have people that like to steal our intellectual property, and we have, and so on. So what the Department of Defense is doing is trying to tighten up the flow of information going from the contracting people to the company. And so DFARS 52-204-7012 and NIST 800-171 are the key documents that guide cybersecurity compliance. And to be quite honest with you, pretty soon you will not be able to bid on any DoD contract, and I think right now, NASA, DOE, Department of Energy, Homeland Security, all the civilian agencies are beginning to put clauses in their solicitations that say you have to meet this compliance. So if you want to do business with DoD, you need to start on that now. And it's a process. You can't do it all at one time, and it costs money. So the first thing you have to do is do the DoD self-assessment. This is a 110 questionnaire that talks about the different families of control that DoD is concerned about, i.e. password protection. How often do you change your passwords? You know, who gets into the system? If somebody leaves your company, then how quickly do you delete them from your email and all the other stuff? See, this goes back to those quality certifications. It goes back to the operations manual. You want to have this stuff laid out. So you take the questionnaire. By the way, we have a link. We have what we did. We took the questionnaire and converted it to an Excel file that, you know, it's on an Excel sheet. You just answer the questions and you get a score. And once you have a score, then you have to upload the score plus a plan of action, you know, how you're going to deal with the deficiencies that your score, your self-assessment will be. You have to upload it to SPRS, and that database, and that's where contracting people will go to see to what level of compliance you are at this point. The other thing is incident response plan and reporting. If you are hacked, they want you to tell the contracting officer immediately that you've been hacked, and they need to know what information was taken from you. You know, we have a client, we have a lot of manufacturing companies, and they make product, you know, they make parts. So they use CNC machines that basically will grind out the part based on computerized documentation. Well, one of the guys operating one of the machines, he got it going, it's working. So he decided to go to his Facebook page on the machine. Now, all these machines are networked. Okay, they all feed into the company's information system, which on one hand is very efficient, but on the other hand, it creates it a lot easier for somebody to come hack you. So this guy, a hacker, came through his Facebook page, got control over, got access to the company and documents, finances or whatever. They tried to go from the company to their customer, say like Lockheed Martin, but he was stopped because Lockheed Martin, you know, they're very well, you know, they're number one, number two DoD contractor. So they adhere to cybersecurity. They have all sorts of different security functions and so on. So incident response plan and reporting. The next one is system security plan. This is where it gets expensive, because what you have to do, if you don't have an IT department in your company, then you'll have to hire a consultant to come in and based on your self-assessment, to correct the problems in your system that are vulnerable. And that can be an expensive process, but to some extent, it's the cost of doing business. Then there's flow down requirements. So basically, if you are a prime and your solicitation says you have to comply with these cybersecurity rules, and then you win the award, you have to comply with cybersecurity rules. This flow down clause says that whatever you're required, your subcontractors are required. So if you're doing business with any of the aerospace defense contractors, they're going to flow down the requirements to you as a sub in order to keep accountability. So if you have the supply chain that's 3 companies deep, 3 levels deep, then each one of those subcontractors have to comply with the requirements. Lastly, so most of you probably heard the word CMMC, Cybersecurity Maturation Model Certification. So what this does, and by the way, we're waiting for a final rule. So in that rulemaking process through the federal acquisition regulations, they say the final rule should be available, September, October. Well, we've been saying that now since 2018, 2019. So, but from what we can speculate, what's going to be in that rule is that your company, there will be an auditor who is certified to do this, will come into your company and audit the level of compliance that you are currently at. Okay, are you just now doing your self-assessment, or have you started on your system security plan, blah, blah, blah. That auditor will assign you level 1, 2, or 3. Right now, it used to be 4 or 5, now it's down to 3. Level 1, whichever level you get, they'll start attaching these levels to solicitation. And if you don't have that level, then you won't be able to bid on any other solicitation other than the ones that have that level on it. And it makes kind of sense. The level 1 will deal specifically with resellers. Okay, it'll be people that are selling COTS items that you can go into Home Depot and buy. So the requirements for cybersecurity aren't as strenuous as they would be on a level 2 type of certification that deals with manufacturing, making something, and the parts, the prints, all the raw materials. So, we're anticipating that the majority of our manufacturers in the supply chain, the defense industrial base, will have that level 2. And then, of course, level 3 are for companies like Lockheed Martin, or any of the large defense contractors that have security clearances. So we think the majority of all of our small businesses should fall into that level 2. And that's draconian, guys. I mean, now these rules have been out since 2017, and companies are still trying to figure out what to do. So, and where it hits them in the face is that they can't get that contract awarded. The contracting officer won't award that contract to them unless they're following compliance in this area. So it will definitely weed out companies that aren't strong. I mean, we have some mom and pop manufacturers that hardly know how to use a laptop. Okay, but they're good skilled workers. I mean, they make things and they make things very well. But if they don't have the sophistication level on their management team, to say, hey, we got to start doing this, this, and this, then they won't be able, they'll be out of the defense industrial base because they won't be able to bid on. So this is just kind of a heads up right now, definitely 7.1 through 7.5, they are the law. Okay. And then when 7.6 becomes the law, then, we'll address what the law says in terms of requirements. So the last one are questions.
Thank you, Archie, and also a big thank you also to Gregory. I'm sorry, Gregory, if you would, you can go ahead and put your last slide up there so they can be taking the information down. And yes, folks, I know we're running a little bit as far as over, but we greatly appreciate you all being here today. We have a couple of questions that I'm going to go ahead and address, and hopefully we can get these addressed within the next 5 minutes. And also, if we don't answer one of your questions, the slide deck with the links and everything will be sent And any questions that aren't answered right now, we will reach out to you with that answer. One of the questions that we have, Archie or Gregory, is from Ms. Betts, which says that she already does do local government bids, but want to see if there are things that she could do better. I would say, Archie, would you like to take that question?
Yeah, I'll take that one. That question, I would start by saying it depends. And when I say it depends, it means that in order to understand what things you can do better, we first need to understand what you're doing currently. So without putting it in context, I could just be giving you the same thing over and over again. I think I touched on some of those points earlier on how we can do them successfully. But the biggest thing is to just kind of sit down with us on a one-on-one basis. That way we can take a look at what it is that you're currently doing and develop a strategy that can allow you to be more successful on getting your bids.
Okay. The next question that we have is from a Mr. Neely. He wants to know, how vital are proposals to winning government contracts? I think that's a softball question. If you want to take that one, go right ahead.
Who, me?
How about Gregory? You answer that.
Sure. Hey, no proposal, no contract. Period.
There you go.
So now, and a lot of that depends on whether you're selling a service or a product. Okay, if you're selling some sort of service, yes, it's an RFP. It's a request for proposal. But if you're selling a product, it's a request for quote, and you don't have to have the full-blown RFP requirements.
Okay, and I believe we've answered one of these questions here, but
can I double down on that one real quick? And it's not just about the proposal, right? There are going to be requirements that are going to be often the RFQ, RFP that's going to require you to put it in a certain format to make sure all the questions are going to be answered. And if you don't do that, they won't even look at it. They'll just take it like, something as simple as 10-point font, 2-page or whatever it is. They'll just take it and just throw it right out the window and won't even look at it. And you spend a lot of time and resources doing that. So no matter what you do, I just encourage you to have somebody to take a look at it for you.
Yeah, and by the way, that's one of the things we do. We do review proposals before they're submitted. And so we, that's the kind of service we provide too.
okay. And I'm going to have this one as the final question, and the others, again, folks, we will get the answers out to you. Is from Strategic Resource Partners, which is, I would like to find out what paperwork is needed to submit a successful bid for federal government. Also, more information on cyber compliance. On that second part, can I also mention in this, before one of you answer this question, that we will be having a series of webinars, educational webinars, and which we will go deep dive into specific areas. And there seems to be a lot of questions about cybersecurity. So our host and our guest speaker will more than likely take that up as the next subject matter, in which we will go a deep dive on to have a session on that specific topic. So again, the question on this one is, I would like to find out what paperwork is needed to submit a successful bid for federal government.
Okay, I'll chime in. Each solicitation has the requirements of what to turn in. And unfortunately, some of my clients do not like to read. So they have to read it, because to answer your question, it is in the solicitation. All the requirements, the bid, everything that they want you to return back, it is in the solicitation itself. And they vary by solicitation.
Absolutely, Gregory. And that's kind of the point that I was touching on, making sure that that outline is set up correctly. So
right,
when you do your outline, it's going to go through and shred what the requirements are, put them off into a way that you can essentially write to it. And that's going to be one of the keys to success. But that paperwork we're going through and shredding what the requirement of solicitation has for that opportunity or for that bid is going to be off in there.
Okay, Archie, if you would, please, you can close us out. And again, everyone will be receiving a slide deck along with the links included. And Archie, I'm handing it back over to you to close us out.
Thanks, Ed. Hey, Gregory, thanks once again. A lot of great information that you provided. Those of you who submitted questions, thank you. And thank you for attending today's webinar. Like Ed said, the information is going to be pushed out to you, to everyone that registered for this event, to include the slides and the recording. But if you have any more additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out to either Gregory or myself for follow-up. We'll do anything that we can within reason to help you. Where you're going to find that this information is going to be useful, maybe not today, but later on, if you just keep those slides, kind of go through and review them, something may trigger you to say, hey, well, now I need to go back and look at that because that was mentioned right there. If you get to that point, don't hesitate to reach out. Once again, thank you for viewing, and you have a great day.